Legalizing weed is actually making criminals chill out and stop committing crimes, and science finally has the receipts to prove it. A brand new study just dropped in the journal Economic Modeling, and it completely destroys the old boomer argument that legalizing marijuana turns neighborhoods into lawless wastelands. A team of researchers from a bunch of different colleges looked at the data across all 50 states and found something absolutely hilarious, but completely logical. Depending on how a state legalizes cannabis, different types of criminals just decide to retire. Here is the exact breakdown of how this works. When a state legalizes medical marijuana, property crime goes down. Think about it for a second. People are finally getting their chronic pain, anxiety, and insomnia treated legally and safely. Nobody is out there plotting a complex midnight heist to steal a flat-screen television or break into a car when they just took a heavy indica gummy to help their bad knee. They are fast asleep in their beds. Now, when a state legalizes recreational marijuana, violent crime drops. This is even more obvious. It is physically impossible to start a turf war or a random street brawl when you and your friends are completely couch-locked, intensely debating whether water is wet or just makes things wet. The aggression just evaporates into thin air. The researchers did point out one major catch to this whole situation, which they call a lag effect. The crime rates do not just plummet the very next morning after the dispensaries open their doors and cut the ribbon. It takes a few years for the magic to really happen. Society basically needs a minute to adjust to the new vibe. The scientists are telling politicians to be patient and not to freak out if the crime rate does not hit zero on day one. You have to let the chill slowly marinate into the local population over time. At first, the researchers actually thought recreational weed might be causing a tiny spike in property crime, but then they put the data through a massive synthetic difference in differences model, which is just intense nerd talk for double-checking the math. Once they factored in the specific trends of each state, that slight increase completely vanished. It was a total false alarm. The math literally proved that legal weed drives out crime, and this is not just one isolated study acting like a fluke. The receipts keep piling up from all over the country. Last year, researchers looked at Atlanta after the city decriminalized marijuana. Critics were screaming that the city would descend into chaos. Instead, violent crime went down because the police stopped wasting their entire shift busting teenagers for holding a gram of weed and actually started focusing on real emergencies. Another wild study from earlier this year found that legalizing adult use cannabis leads to a massive decrease in intimate partner violence. Even the traffic data is blowing people's minds. You would think legal weed means more crashes, right? Wrong. A recent analysis looked at states that legalized recreational weed and compared them to states where it is still highly illegal. The states with legal weed actually saw a bigger drop in traffic fatalities. People driving home from the dispensary are probably going 10 miles under the speed limit because they are overly focused on making sure they do not spill their takeout food. The ultimate crime-fighting tool is definitely not a superhero in a cape. It turns out the best way to make the streets safer is just giving people legal access to a really good sativa.